Who would have guessed that entering week number 6 of the NFL season, the Baltimore Ravens defense would have 4 negative fantasy outings and average a league worst 0.6 fantasy points per game. This 1 year after being a top 12 defense for fantasy managers. The Ravens' fall from fantasy grace only cements the belief that streaming and playing the matchups is the best course of action for fantasy managers. With that said, here are 5 defenses fantasy managers can stream with confidence in week number 6. And we're starting things off with the New England Patriots as they take on the New Orleans Saints. While Spencer Rattler sits 13th in passing yards this season with 990, his yards per attempt is among the worst at 5.6. If you're looking for a reason as to why the Saints' 18.4 total points per game is the 6th lowest, that's as good a reason as any right now. Juwan Jennings, he's the top pass catcher on the Saints team. He's the only one averaging more than 50 receiving yards per game. Not exactly something that instills some kind of fear in opposing defenses or fantasy managers looking for a defense to stream this week. New England, they entered week number 5's contest against the Buffalo Bills, sitting 7th in fantasy football, averaging 8.3 fantasy points per game, and had produced 7 or more fantasy points in a game in 3 of those previous contests before the Sunday Night Football showdown with Josh Allen. In the first half against the Bills, New England held Allen and company in check, holding Allen to 100 yards passing, with the biggest play coming on a 19-yard run late in the first half. The New England Patriots, they have also forced a pair of fumbles in the first half, their first fumble recoveries of the season, and they recorded a sack late in that first half as well. With the way the Patriots played in that first half, they showed the league how far they've come since they finished as the 31st ranked defense a season ago. And make no mistake about it, no one is mistaking Spencer Rattler for Josh Allen. Another defense I'm firing up this week. How about the Washington Commanders as they take on the Chicago Bears? While the Bears had the week off last week, the Commanders, they were in Los Angeles playing a majority of that contest in the Chargers backfield. Most notably, Dorrance Armstrong, who had a pair of sacks. In total, the Commanders would sack Herbert 4 times, while also making sure that Trey Lance felt included in the fun as they got to him as well. This season, the Commanders are averaging 7.4 fantasy points per game and have registered 9 or more fantasy points in 3 of the 5 contests thus far. A major reason for that success has been that sack attack they got going on there. Along with the 5 sacks last week, the Commanders have run their total to 15, the 3rd most in the NFL. Chicago is much improved when it comes to protecting Caleb Williams, having conceded just 7 sacks through 4 games after allowing 68 a season ago. Have the Bears improved that much, or have they even been tested? We will find out this week as one of the best offensive lines faces one of the most disruptive defensive fronts as they face off against one another this week. Another defense I'm firing up. How about the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cleveland Browns? Pittsburgh enters week 6 well rested after sitting out last week's slate of games due to their bye week. They also enter this week's divisional showdown with the Browns, averaging 8.3 fantasy points per game. For the Steelers defense, they will look to continue the momentum they had before they entered their bye, having produced 26 fantasy points over their previous 2 contests. In 4 games, Pittsburgh, they have accumulated 14 sacks, once again led by TJ Watt. Watt, who has accounted for 3 of the 14 sacks, while 9 other Steelers have contributed to that total, a total that has them sitting 8th in the league even after their bye week. More impressive than the sacks is the fact that the Steelers have forced 10 turnovers this season, 5 interceptions, 5 fumble recoveries. Only the Jacksonville Jaguars have forced more turnovers this season than the Steelers have. Last week, Cleveland, they made the move to go to rookie Dillon Gabriel. And Gabriel, you know what? He was fine in his NFL debut, throwing for a pair of touchdowns against a very good Vikings defense. However, Minnesota, they made that rookie uncomfortable, sacking him on a pair of occasions, leading to 19 of 33 passing. We know the Vikings defense is good, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are another level above that. Now, I've been catching a little bit of heat lately in the comment section of these videos about how about you start some defenses that aren't so obvious since week number 2. Well, I am a man of the people, and I can assure you that there ain't nobody sitting on the Tennessee Titans over the last 4 or 5 weeks, so I'm taking the Titans this week as they head to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. In fact, the Titans had just 1 double-digit fantasy week to their name before dropping 15 against the Cardinals last week. Between the 10-point fantasy performance in week number 1 and the 15-point performance there in week number 5, the Titans had failed to register more than 5 fantasy points in any of those 3 contests in between. Let's do a little bit of fantasy math here, shall we? If the Titans posted 15 fantasy points last week, and the Raiders gave up 15 fantasy points to the Colts as well last week, then that should mean, by my math and my calculations, that they are due for about a 30-point performance against this Raiders team this week. Okay, so the numbers are a little bit off, but so too have Geno Smith's passes of late. Against the Colts, Smith threw 2 more interceptions and was sacked 4 more times. This season, Smith has been sacked 16 times. That is the second most in the NFL. Meanwhile, the 9 interceptions that he has thrown, that is the most in the NFL this season. When you have a defense that faces a team that gives up sacks in bunches and turns the ball over, that is fantasy gold right there. Now another start, how about the Miami Dolphins as they take on the Los Angeles Chargers? Now I promised a couple deeper dives, so let's stick with that process here one more time and add the Dolphins to that list here this week. And in recent weeks, this Dolphins defense, they ranked 13th in sacks and 6th in forced fumbles recovered. Miami, they enter week number 6 averaging 4.8 fantasy points per game. However, the Dolphins, they have produced 7 or more fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 contests and are now set up to take on a Chargers offense that seems to have lost its spark in recent weeks. Against both the Giants and the Commanders, Los Angeles, they have scored just 28 points, while Justin Herbert has completed just 45 of his 70 passing attempts for 369 yards. Now, in those 2 contests, Herbert, he has thrown 3 interceptions and been sacked on 6 occasions. He's also been sacked 16 times in the last 5 weeks. Making matters even worse for the Chargers is that rookie running back Omarion Hampton exited last week's contest early with an ankle injury. While the injury isn't expected to keep him out long term, it could hold him out this week. And in Hampton's absence, Hassan Haskins and Kimani Vidal, they are the next man up behind a severely depleted Chargers offensive line. This to me right now screams start the Dolphins this week. And one more thing, if you haven't already done so, hit those like and those subscribe buttons and head over to RotoBaller.com for all the latest news and fantasy analysis.